Hi, welcome to the video. Make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoy, and comment your thoughts and opinions on the stories. Let's get started. Am I the antagonist for yelling at my aunt to shut up in front of a restaurant full of people? When I, 30 male, was 5, my family took me to one of those Japanese steakhouses where they cook the food at your table. When the cook lit the grill and the huge flame shot up into the air, it scared the heck out of me, and I ran and hid in the corner and was too afraid to come back to the table. My aunt, 64F, has teased me about that ever since. That was 25 years ago, and I swear she brings it up every single time I see her. I've told her repeatedly to stop talking about it. My parents have also asked her to stop bringing it up to no avail. It's gotten so tiresome and embarrassing, and she teases me about it in front of the whole family despite me repeatedly telling her to stop. I've never really gotten along well with my aunt, and lately I've made it a point to avoid her at family gatherings. We celebrated my birthday Friday and I wanted to go to one of those Japanese steakhouses. I didn't invite my aunt, but my grandmother invited her behind my back. I didn't know she was coming until she showed up. I was already pissed off that my grandmother invited her. She told me that my aunt is family and I can't just exclude her from everything. But as soon as we sat down, my aunt started rubbing me about that incident when I was 5. I told her to stop bringing it up, and my mom told her to stop as well. But when the cook was fixing to light the hibachi, she asked me in this really condescending way, "You sure you don't wanna go hide in the corner for old time's sake?" I finally just lost my temper and went off on her right there in front of the whole restaurant. I basically yelled at her, "Will you just shut up about that already? That was 25 years ago. Is that literally all you have to talk about? I'm sick of hearing about it. This is why I didn't invite you." I swear the entire restaurant must have been staring at me, and I felt like just walking out. The entire rest of the dinner was awkward and I couldn't even enjoy my meal. After we left, my grandmother told me that I embarrassed her in front of everyone, and that my outburst was completely uncalled for, and that I owed my aunt an apology. My parents told me I didn't owe my aunt anything, and were angry at my grandmother for inviting her. But I still feel like an asshole for losing my temper and yelling in front of the restaurant. And the whole thing was deeply embarrassing. My grandmother and my aunt are also both blasting me on Facebook for embarrassing them in public. So am I the antagonist? Although you could have handled the situation more cordially, you are under no responsibility to put up with your aunt's treatment of you, which borders on emotional abuse. I advise you to keep your aunt out of the picture, no matter what your grandmother does. Comment by team member Cody. Now for the top comments. NTA. She had been told/warned repeatedly to stop. For this to go on for 25 years is ridiculous. You had every right to do what you did, because obviously it was going to take extreme measures for her to shut up. You embarrassed her? That is what she has been doing to you for 25 years. Your grandmother was out of line to invite someone to your birthday party that she knew you did not want there. Blast them back. They are not owed an apology. Right? I'd be replying back, "I'd apologize for embarrassing you. If you apologize to me for embarrassing me repeatedly for 25 years. NTA. She's a bully, and your grams kinda sucks for inviting her behind your back. Seriously. Glad Ops parents are supportive at the very least. NTA, and your grandmother owes you an apology. You don't invite people to someone else's party. Stop inviting grandma as well." Am I the antagonist for defending my bigot grandmother? I, 19F, recently got in a huge fight with my sister, 15F, because I defended our grandma, 75F, because my sister thinks she's Islamophobic. My whole family is from one of the most liberal states in the US. I won't say where for privacy reasons, and my whole family including my grandma is pretty liberal. My sister however definitely takes being woke to a whole new level. My grandma is a very nice lady and I really admire her, but my sister is constantly criticizing her for political reasons. For example, my grandmother was a sex ed teacher in an inner city high school for 30 years and taught night classes at a local community college. She recently told us a story about a time where offered to adopt one of students who was homeless so he could get free tuition at the college she worked at. My sister started lecturing her on having a white savior mentality and how adoption rips children away from poor families. Another time my grandma was talking about the discrimination her parents had faced when they moved to America from Ireland, and my sister got upset because that discrimination was nothing compared to what black people in this country have faced. My grandma hadn't been comparing it to that. My sister just brought it up out of nowhere. This stuff happens all the time, and I can tell it's devastating to my grandma because she always wants to try her best and educate herself, but my sister goes straight to criticizing her. It all boiled over a few days ago when my grandma used the word flamboyant to describe her brother who was gay. Not the best word to use, I know, but there was no bad intent behind it. As soon as we got in the car to leave, my sister started criticizing her for it, and I completely lost it. I started screaming at my sister for how she treated our grandma. I told her she's a performative activist and nothing more, and our grandma has had more of a positive impact on this world than she ever will. I told her if she ever brought that up in front of our grandma again, I would rip her a new one. She was the only one in the family who accepted her brother from the moment he came out, and when he died of AIDS during the AIDS crisis, my grandma volunteered to work for an organization that educated people on AIDS to try and end the stigma. My sister is very sensitive and started crying because I yelled at her and made me pull the car over because I triggered her to have a panic attack. She called our mom to come pick her up on the side of the road and hasn't spoken to me since. Am I the antagonist? It does no good to criticize her grandmother for not being a liberal idealist. Show your sister what a performative activist is and call her out on her BS. NTA. Your grandma has some experience assisting others, and your sister should take this as a lesson and stop judging each action. Comment by team member Jordan. Now for the top comments. Performative activist is right, not the a-hole. Your grandma was talking from a place of personal experience. That's not privilege. That's exactly how we should strive to communicate, learn, and understand each other. Your sister, on the other hand, was simply playing the whataboutism card to sound superior to your grandma. If your sister thinks your grandma should somehow own her racism or homophobia, then how about your sister owns her own triggers and stops acting like people have to walk on eggshells around her sensitivities? NTA. Actions speak louder than words. It seems your grandma had the actions from her heart, while your sister is a self-righteous grammar cop. NTA. Your sister is 15, and by default all teenagers are assholes. Not understanding that what your grandma did is progressive, even for these modern times. Grandma sounds badass, and you should be proud for standing up for her. Am I the antagonist for how I reacted to my brother-in-law walking into the room while I was breastfeeding? Everybody knows that if my library door is closed, it means I'm breastfeeding my son, so they shouldn't just walk in, since I don't like to breastfeed with an audience. Even my husband knocks before walking in. My brother-in-law wanted to ask me a question and just walked in without knocking because he forgot and was in a rush. I tried to quickly cover myself and screamed at him to get out. My son started crying and I knew it was going to take me forever to get him to latch again, so I was really angry and upset. I know it was probably an overreaction, but at the time I wanted to cry. I was so upset. My brother-in-law did apologize and then got defensive because I had stopped feeding my son so I could cover myself. He told me I could keep feeding him and that he would never look at me in that way because I was his brother's wife. I kept yelling at him to get the hell out, but he wouldn't because my husband told him to ask me if I was okay with the dates he had chosen for a surprise trip to visit their grandparents, and he needed to know as soon as possible. He only left because my husband kicked him out after hearing me yelling at him. My husband did apologize to me, but I kept telling him I didn't want his brother coming to the house anymore. Even though he agreed to tell his brother not to come over for the foreseeable future, I could see he wasn't happy about it. Am I the antagonist? I would let everyone know that going forwards. The door will be locked when you nurse. Get a lock if the door knob doesn't already have one. Get a flippable sign that indicates when the space is being used for breastfeeding and hang it on the door with a command hook. Comment by team member Parker. Now for the top comments. I kept yelling at him to get the hell out, but he wouldn't. He only left because my husband kicked him out after hearing me yelling at him. Way too many people seem to be missing this. Op isn't banning him because he barged in, went sorry when she yelled, and left. She's uncomfortable because he wouldn't leave when she was incredibly uncomfortable. She never said anything about indecent thoughts. She just doesn't like being watched breastfeeding. Not the a-hole. Though it's probably not realistic long term. Not sure how to get your brother-in-law to understand how gross it was to do that. He's centering his inference that you think he's creepy over your obvious discomfort that wasn't about him. Got NTA. Brother-in-law walking in could be an innocent mistake. But then he stayed. He could have just shut the door and asked his question through the door. And this emergency question seems like a ruse. It was so time sensitive he couldn't wait 15 minutes. Am I the antagonist for reminding family guests about the house rules too many times? Our blended family spent a week at our beach house. The entire main floor was recently remodeled. We immediately set ground rules. New stove off limits. We hadn't used it yet and we make the meals. No food prep on kitchen island behind the downdraft. Food will damage unit. Carefully close 20-year-old refrigerator doors. No beverages in the LR. Take care of new kitchen chairs, white cushions. Take outdoor showers when possible. Due to septic. No house rules in remainder of house including the private guest floor. We purchased most of the food. Alcohol. Cooked and cleaned. 36-yo daughter with 2 children had no issues. 31-yo son with wife seemed fine. Followed rules. Pitched in. But did mention a couple of times when I asked him to help he was autonomous. 28-yo stepson kept forgetting rules and privately complained to his father about them. Rarely pitched in or cleaned up after himself. Said the house didn't feel like his family home. Husband and I moved in 1 year ago. We had 5 wonderful beach days. Dinners, cocktails, board games, fishing, kayaking, etc. We would periodically check their floor to turn off fans, collect wet towels, etc. It always looked like a bomb went off. Clothes and wet towels everywhere. Honestly, that didn't bother me and I never made a comment. I became frustrated with the 28-yo. It appeared he was trying to push buttons rules, spilling red wine next to new furniture. Prep food behind downdraft, accidentally getting locked out and waking house up, etc. By midweek, I'm sure I sounded like an asshole constantly reminding everyone of the main floor rules. Husband took boys on fishing charter. I asked my 31-yo son to help me wipe down the car seats. They brought home 5 full-size bass. He said he was autonomous, got pissed off, and tried to argue. I wouldn't engage, and my husband and I decided not to go out to dinner with the group that night. They all went out, and when daughter came home with grandkids a couple of hours later, she said they were all drinking too much, doing shots. The 2 boys texted my daughter around 9 PM saying they had enough rules and were thinking about alternative housing. My husband phoned my stepson who said they were thinking about getting a hotel for the night. My husband said they should do that and to come get their items. When they arrived, they were inebriated, angry, and threatening. It was an awful scene and my stepson kept screaming I was a bitch and my son verbally threatened my husband. The 2 boys left and the wife stayed the night. My husband and I haven't spoke to them since. My stepson texted my husband saying that I was a bully and they should not have been told to leave and that instead I should have apologized to them because privately they were all calling me a bitch. We're heartbroken. Am I the antagonist because of our rules and my constant nagging about them? I'm sick over what happened and shocked by their aggressive behavior. How many years have you been wed? The men's actions in response was inappropriate, and it appears that they had originally suggested leaving. They made the right choice by booking a hotel because some of your requirements were excessive. Comment by team member Cody. Now for the top comments. I'm just here to say this, after so many blended family posts on AITA, it's great just to see the boys are getting along, taking too many shots, and bitching about their parents, coming back drunk, yelling at their respective step-parents, and going to a hotel for a sleepover. Someone get Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly on the horn. This one's gonna be huge. This healed my heart. New stove off limits. What the hell is the point of a stove if you can't use it to cook? These are adults you should trust to use a stove like a basic human being. No food prep on kitchen island. Food will damage unit. Are you sure about that? Kitchen islands are literally made to have food. I've never heard of food or food prep destroying an island. Unless you're someone who cuts things on a counter and not a cutting board. No beverages in the LR seems like a killjoy. Sippy cups for kids should suffice. Adults, again, should be trusted. Take outdoor showers when possible. Due to septic, what's the point of a shower if you can't use it? I don't blame some of the adults wanting to stay elsewhere. These are excessive rules to follow while on vacation. Others suck for reacting with that language and threats of violence. The repeated autonomous gets me. Frankly, it sounds like an event that should never be repeated. Am I the antagonist for telling my dad, his wife and both their parents to fuck off and lay off my mom? My parents divorced when I was 7 because my dad was having an affair with his current wife and had gotten her pregnant. My life was a mess after. My mom was broken and my dad was really trying to bring me and my sister into this perfect family mold with his wife. But because he did a bad job of keeping me out of it, I knew. And I didn't like either of them for it. I still don't. I think his wife is a homewrecker because she knew us before she and my dad started their affair. And I think my dad is also a homewrecker and a bad husband and even a bad dad to me for breaking up my family in the way he did and causing so much instability and for exposing it in a way that would hurt my mom but also air everything to me, yet expecting me to be okay with everything. Ultimately, my mom kept her distance from them and I respect that. She has never said a bad thing about them to me, but she did sit me down and tell me that she would not be able to present a friendly front with my dad and that when people hurt us, sometimes the healthiest thing is to avoid being around them so we don't fight or make things worse. And that was what she was doing. My dad and his wife ended up in a bad financial position 3 years ago and things at their house have been very tight. So my sister and I ended up staying with our mom and going to dad's sometimes. My dad had a birthday recently and we were all at his house with his parents and ILs. And they all started talking shit about my mom not doing more to help the household when she knew my half siblings were not doing great. They also brought up how my half siblings had asked to meet her several times and she never did meet them, and how she was petty and spiteful and should be the bigger person and help kids who are her kids' siblings. I told them to fuck off with that shit and lay off my mom who owes none of them, even the kids, anything. I said if they wanted her to be more involved they should never have cheated behind her back, and my dad shouldn't have done the most to hurt her when he told the truth. My sister agreed with me. She said it's not like we even cared about the kids, so why should mom? We ended up leaving early and my dad and my grandparents have been on my case about being assholes to everyone. Am I the antagonist? It's acceptable to stand up for someone who can't stand up for themselves against unfair criticism. Monogamous couples cheating has gotten far too widespread and accepted. Your mother owes your father and his new family nothing. And based on what you've mentioned, it sounds like she's taken a reasonable and straightforward approach. Comment by team member Corey. Now for the top comments. NTA, it's not your mom's responsibility to bail her cheating ex-husband and his affair partner. Your dad has zero right to expect her to help, and I don't blame you for calling him out on his nonsense. Absolutely mind-boggling that people somehow expect the cheated on partner to give two shits about their ex's kids they had with their affair partner, let alone take any sort of responsibility for them. The best case scenario is that Op's mom has nothing to do with any of them. NTA, if I had half the audacity your father and his family have, I'd be ruling the bowels of hell RN. WTF. Okay, this is going on the list of new fave insults. NTA. And the audacity, the flipping audacity, that they all think your mom should help them. She should help her unfaithful ex-husband, his home-wrecking wife, and kids she doesn't know or care about. It is to laugh. She's already gone above and beyond by not trash talking them to you and your sister. You're not the a-hole. Your mom is not the a-hole. If your grandparents think that someone should have helped your dad and his wife, they could have ponied up. But not your mom. Never your mom. She doesn't owe them anything. Ever. Am I the antagonist for kicking a girl out of my wedding party? Throw away because some of my family members use Reddit and I don't want this to get out too soon. I, 28F, am getting married tomorrow. And a few months ago, I invited my fiance's 2 younger cousins, 15F and 14F, to be junior bridesmaids in the wedding party. The girls were very excited to participate, and both of them knew the date of the wedding. I picked out dresses that complemented their hair colors perfectly, brown and blonde. A nice blue color that looked pretty on both of them. After we got the dresses in, and the girls tried them on, I made some jokes about not making any too drastic changes like getting a tan, or dyeing their hair before the wedding. A few months after this, I had my bridal luncheon, which was yesterday, and had all my bridesmaids in attendance. The younger cousin, who was blonde, had dyed her hair a bright shade of red, which meant her hair no longer matched the dress. This wouldn't have been much of an issue if it was darker, but the color was way too bright, almost fire truck red, and did not look good compared to the dress. She was drawing attention away from all the other bridesmaids and myself, and stuck out immensely in pictures. I was very upset by this, as she knew the wedding was approaching and that if she made any drastic changes like that she wouldn't match the rest of the bridesmaids. After the luncheon, I pulled her aside and asked her to step down as a bridesmaid because her hair was way too bright and would distract from everyone else at the wedding. She got upset and started crying, running off without saying another word. I got a very angry text from her mother later that day, saying that I shouldn't have made as big of a deal as I had, and that she could have just worn a wig or something. Am I the asshole here? You need to understand that you have no control over or in relation to other individuals for your wedding, because brides and hair color have a long history. You may have taken advantage of this to show off your kind heart and solid memory in your wedding pictures. Comment by team member Cody. Now for the top comments. AITA, you care more about appearance than people here. Your cousin is a person, not a set piece for your show. Not Op's cousins. Her fiance's cousins, which almost makes this worse. Imo. Imagine being that self-centered and rude to a family you're about to join. AITA. Hair color? You kicked her out because her hair color didn't match her dress? You do realize that just because she agreed to be in your wedding party, that she did not agree to let you rule her entire life until the wedding, right? Ultimately, no one is going to care about the hair color of a bridesmaid. You really need to get over these insecurities of yours. However, you've sent the signal to your family, loud and clear, that your love for them is conditional on their appearance. I agree, Op, as you're the a-hole. She is literally the only person that would care about the hair or care as much about the wedding. Her fiance's family now knows exactly the type of person she is and will likely distance themselves from her. Life is messy and does not follow your plans. Get over yourself.